Hey guys, welcome to my channel, the Vanguard Raid Command. I'm Armageddon Actual, and today we're going to talk about public events. So the reason I want to do public events in Destiny 2 is because since the game became free-to-play back in October when Shadowkeep launched, there's been a ton of new players on this game, and a lot of them have actually made it to quite high levels, but still haven't actually learned a lot of the base mechanics of the game, one of those things being how to make public events heroic. And that's a very important thing to do in the game, especially when there's lots of quests that actually require it, and you got a lot of new players that kind of screwed up for everyone else. So I figured this was a good opportunity for me to put another video out, and for those people that don't know how to do this stuff to actually get a chance to learn it. So here we go. Alright, so the first public event that I'm going to walk you guys through is going to be the Glimmer Drill. This one is one of the more common ones you're going to see all over the place in the EDZ, Nessus, the Moon. It's a very common event, very easy to do. The only thing is that, like a lot of public events in this game, it is a little bit time gated on if you don't complete a certain objective before another player screws it up and does something else, you can actually fail the heroic. Which does suck. This one is the most lenient, I would say, with having second chances. So to make it heroic, you're going to see this device that just spawned in front of me here. We have to destroy one of these at all three of the different Glimmer Drill locations. They do have a lot of health, but like most things in this game, if you run the right gear for it, they're actually pretty easy to destroy. So you saw I destroyed it there. That's all you have to do. One of those at each of the three locations. And you have to do it before this Glimmer Extractor Captain is actually eliminated, because that does despawn the entire sequence. So you're going to notice he dies here, the drill's going to despawn, and then after that the enemies are going to despawn. They're going to shift to another location. That's your time gating. So you have to make sure that those devices are destroyed before the captain is killed in the second wave. If you don't make that timing, it will spawn the first extractor at the next location, and you will have to destroy two. So you are going to be a bit more time crunched. And then again, if you fail that, it will spawn all three at the third location. So you will have three chances to make sure you destroy all of them. It's not hard to do, you just have to make sure that the other players don't kill enemies too fast. You will also notice that the Glimmer Drill itself does damage over time when you stand under it. So preferably, that's not a place for you to stand. I would suggest making sure you're always outside of the little square of devices around the drill. Again, we're going to kill the second captain, it's going to despawn the sequence, and we're going to move to the third location. Over time, you will learn the set regions where the Glimmer Drills actually do spawn in, and you will learn where all the different locations of the drills are, so eventually you will be able to beat them to their location, because the third one, you always know is where that's going to spawn. So, same as normal, we're going to kill a couple enemies, it's going to spawn in the final one, and then we're just going to do everything we can to destroy it. Once it's destroyed, you've made your event heroic. You no longer have to worry about too much. Don't stand underneath the drill, as this guy learned the hard way. It will crash down to the ground and explode, and it will kill anyone that's underneath it. It happens to usually one person every single time this event happens. I don't know why people stand under it, but that is not a place you want to be. Now, to complete this on Heroic, you're going to notice that we have a bar at the bottom of the screen. It's gone from 0, it's now at 20, and it's going to go up to 100%. All we have to do is actually stand within the circle on top of this Glimmer and capture it to 100%. At this time, you're going to fight off an endless group of enemies, as well as this fallen captain who's a boss. He is pretty easy to kill. My suggestion is be offensive with him. Don't let him come to you. Try and get him before he actually gets to the circle, because otherwise, you know how it goes in Destiny. He starts ground smashing, people go flying into walls. That's very frustrating. So, as I said, my suggestion is to just kill him before he gets to you guys, and then you can defend your circle no problem. If the timer does hit 0 before you've completed your Glimmer to 100%, it won't actually fail as long as there is one player at all times within the circle after the timer's hit 0. You can step out of it anytime you want before the timer's at 0, but after you have to have one person in at all times. And so that's how you do the Glimmer Drill. So before we actually jump into the next public event, I wanted to put a little hint in here. These Rally to the Flag banners are actually very, very important to helping you complete your events a little bit more effectively. Once you rally to them, not only do you get the timer that tells you how long on your event, but it actually is going to fully charge your super, fully load your heavy, special, and primary ammo, and fill all your abilities. So it puts you up to 100% on all the stuff that you need to get the events completed. So it's very beneficial to do that. You can also use it to your advantage if you're doing quests or bounties. Like the last few seasons, we've had a lot of bounty fatigue, but if you're trying to grind out a lot of quests and bounties that involve using certain weapons or abilities, it's worth it to just run around, get as many kills as possible, and then at the last second grab that flag and regenerate all your stuff to full. Just a little hint for everyone. So, onward with our next event. This is going to be the Fallen Walkers. They do show up very often on Titan, and less often on the EDZ, but sometimes they like to just make an appearance all day. I don't know why. To spawn the actual vehicle in, you have to kill the captain. Everyone else is kind of irrelevant. It's just nice to get them cleared out of the way. The walker's going to hit the ground. Don't shoot him right away, because he actually can't take damage until he stands up, and you're going to notice he's got little lights on his knees, basically, the little orange lights there. Those are what lets you know that he can actually take damage. If those aren't lit up, he's not going to take damage yet, so wait for them to show up. Once you've downed him by taking off one of his legs, you're going to grab one of these arc charges and just put them into these generators. There's a total of 6 generators around the area, around the 3 different bubbles. All you have to do is put them in. It's super easy. Each time you down him, or each leg, I should say, that is destroyed, he spits out 3 of those balls. That's why you can see there's actually more than 3 on the ground right now, because we actually downed 2 of his legs at the same time, which is the best way to do it. You will also notice that I make a little side detour trying to get this guy's attention to put the arc charges in, because, like why I'm making this video, a lot of people don't actually have any clue what the hell they're doing. So, definitely I hope this helps people. But all you're going to do is you're going to put 1 ball into each of the 6 different generators around the bubble shields in this fight, and that's going to make it heroic. So now that you've made it heroic, all you have to do is destroy the walker. And you'll notice on the left that it spawns in a second walker. You have to destroy that too. You will extend your timer because it does make the event substantially more difficult, but this is where you take advantage of the scorch cannons that are laying all around the room or the area and shoot the absolute crap out of them. Use your supers, use your heavy, whatever you've got. I find the best way is just straight up to use my scorch cannons that are laying around because they do a lot of damage. And as well, holding the trigger when you shoot these things will do an extended duration charge. It is beneficial if you're waiting for them to stand back up, but not necessarily the most beneficial when you're in an actual firefight. So, once the second walker is destroyed, you are completed your public event, and that's all you have to do. Now our next video is going to be about the injection rig. I'm putting this one in here with a priority because people still don't know how to do this one. This one's actually a bit more challenging, and it was one of the harder ones for us to figure out back in year 1. So the objective to make this heroic is actually to destroy a bunch of these vents. There's going to be 3 that you have to destroy, 1 on the top, 1 in the middle, and 1 on the bottom. During the beginning of this event, as you can see, there's going to be 3 open on the top, 3 open in the middle. Destroying any one of the ones in a tier, so for example this middle one I just destroyed, will destroy all of the middle ones. You're going to notice above me here when I turn to the right that the vent in the middle here is also smoking because it's destroyed. So as soon as the injection rig lands, you can actually have a bit of an opportunity to destroy one of those vents. It gives you a bit of a head start because you're going to have 3 phases, as there are 3 scions that have to be killed, to do these vents, and you can destroy as many vents per phase as you want. This isn't the same as the Glimmer Drill where you have to wait for each phase. If you damage one really fast, then it immediately is going to open up the next one. So after you kill the scion, the shield comes down, everyone should know this, and then you're going to have a burn phase. The whole place is going to fill with fire because the thrusters go on. During that phase, you have to be risking your health to take out these vents. I always suggest starting with the top and going to the middle. Obviously in this video I went middle to top. So now you see we've done 1 scion of our 3, that's 1 phase done, but we've done 2 vents already. So we're a bit ahead of the game, and it's always nice to try and do that because sometimes you end up being dead during a burn phase or someone procs a little early because it's based off of killing the scions. So for example, what happens in this video, the random player that was also in this public event ended up killing the scion. I didn't, but I was paying attention. That's why I always try and shoot the enemies while facing wherever the Scion is. As you can see, I'm very distant, because I want to know when that Scion's dead. I don't want to be caught off guard when this burn phase starts, especially if I'm surrounded by enemies and almost dead when it kicks in. The third vent is going to open on a random side in the bottom, and as soon as that's done, Ghost will start talking about whatever he decides to talk about, and that's how you know that you've made the heroic version. Now, unlike all the other public events, this one does not immediately go heroic when you've procced the heroic, mechanic, because technically you still have to do all 3 Scions and all 3 vents. So once the third Scion is dead here, and we survive the burn phase, then the heroic event is going to kick in. Alright, so now that we're waiting for the heroic version to proc after this burn phase completes, I'm going to mention this really quickly. There's going to be 3 drop pods that come in. 2 are going to have an interceptor, 1's going to have the boss. Please stay back. I can't tell you how many thousands of people I've seen get crushed by these drop pods, sort of like the same as the Glimmer Drill, coming down and crashing on top of people. It's so disappointing to be destroyed or crushed or killed by something immediately like that, so just stay back. When those drop pods come down, look for the Scions right away. I honestly usually ignore the boss until both Scions are destroyed, because they will instant kill you, usually from behind, because we all know interceptors are a pain in the ass. Once they're dead, then you go into DPS against the boss. He has a lot of health, but using good supers, DPS weapons like grenade launchers and boss spec sniper rifles are actually insanely good. So once you kill the boss, heroic's done, and that's it. It's not that hard of a public event once you know how to do it. Alright, time to chip another one off the list. This one is going to be the Cabal Drill. It's a very easy public event. I say this about a lot of them. It's honestly, unfortunately, probably the easiest one, which is too bad because I actually really enjoyed the mechanic to this one. So, as you start normally, you're going to step into overriding the lander, and you're going to have all these lasers come down. I'm going to slow this down here to show you what I'm talking about. The missiles always fall exactly the same in a counterclockwise rotation. So if you actually stay just over to the side when they first start hitting and then follow them, you can actually stay in the circle the whole time. The more players that do that, the faster the lander actually captures, obviously, because it's based off of how many people are inside to do the capture. And that just saves you an extra couple seconds and makes it a little bit more interesting, honestly. So for the rest of this public event, as we're capturing the lander, you just have to defend against a quote-unquote endless wave of enemies. And this is my big issue with this public event and why I say it's so easy, is because it does not scale to the actual level that we are now. Sometimes I find it drops more enemies than others, but it's just so underwhelming. I mean, there was 3 of us here, 3, and look how long I'm sitting here waiting for these next Scions to spawn in. But as soon as they do spawn in at 35%, at the exact same time, there's also going to be a gunship spawning from the battleship that's up above us, and it's going to be making its rotation around the map. You're going to see it coming up on the left side across the sky here in a second. All we have to do is destroy that to make this event heroic. It has a lot of health. Primary weapons are not advised against this thing. Obviously, if you're running a super or a rocket launcher, linear fusion even, it's going to do some good damage. And then you destroy it. Once you destroy it, it's going to proc the heroic event, and it's going to be a big boss. And again, it doesn't scale to difficulty of where we are now, so the boss has like such a small amount of health, which is disappointing. That's how fast we just killed him with 3 of us. As a side note, though, if you don't destroy the ship right away, it is going to fly off and do another circle of the map. It will return, and I think you have pretty much the entire amount of time to do it. I've seen it fly around 2-3 times before. So if you don't destroy it, as always, they're pretty lenient on your timing and being forgiving with mistakes. So if when it flies back around, you can destroy it again. Alright, so moving into one of my least favorite public events ever, the Taken Blight. This one was actually very difficult for us to figure out back in year 1. It actually took us quite a long time to get the heroic version down. There was a lot of theories going on for a long time. This one's very, very, very difficult, because even if you're running good supers, gear, everything, your teammates are actually very important on this one because they can completely just cancel the event out and finish it on normal. So to do this, you actually want to focus pretty much no attention on the Taken. You want to go straight to damaging this Blight. So you're noticing on the left side of my screen, I have a Blight receding buff. It's a 5-second timer. You get that from running into the little circle here, the Blight dome, and then stepping out of it. That's when you get the Blight receding buff. And as long as you have that 5-second timer on your screen, you can register damage to the main Blight, like the Alpha Blight. This thing has so much health, it actually annoys the crap out of me, because usually I end up doing this by myself, and my teammate over here is just going and destroying the Blight domes, which is canceling my ability to do damage, and unfortunately that makes this event very difficult. The Blight's going to disappear and then regenerate somewhere else in the map, and I'm going to basically repeat the same process and get very stressed out doing so, because my teammate here, or this random anyways, just keeps going over and destroying the Blight domes, and it makes it very difficult for me to do this. I end up having to take all 3 phases, and we actually almost failed the heroic and just completed the normal version. This thing, like I said, has a lot of health. I think I did maybe half of the amount of its health in that first run. And if you have a good team, you're running it with a couple people, and everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing, we could have been done the heroic event by now. Because if everyone's coordinating their fire on this thing, you can actually completely destroy the Blight with like 2, 3, 4 players in like a matter of 20 seconds or less. So this was very frustrating for me, and this is one of those reasons that I'm making this video, because this drives me nuts. We're just wasting time at this point. I'm wasting all my ammo, all my energy, and at the end of it, sometimes you still lose. You don't actually complete the heroic event after all that time put into it. So after you go through and you continue to do this, eventually you end up destroying the Blight, and from that Blight is going to spawn a Taken boss. And just as the Blights have a lot of health, this boss has a ton of health as well, and at this point you've probably used all of your super heavy and special ammo just trying to take out the Blight. So this boss fight actually becomes very difficult if you're not doing it with a lot of people. Fortunately, I got my super back towards the end of it. That's it, though. I mean, realistically, it is pretty simple in theory. The execution is usually a bit more difficult. But again, if you're going in with some friends, or you're with some other people that know what they're doing, this is not a hard public event to do. You can do the whole thing in about 40 seconds. But when you end up in this situation, it's very hard. Alright, so we're going to jump into the next public event. This one is going to be the Vex Spire, and you're going to notice that I've taken a still shot here because this one has 2 things that I want to point out. One is going to be the central conflux here. That is the part that's circled. This is what you're trying to defend for this objective. You're trying to prevent Vex from sacrificing themselves into this objective. You want to keep them away from this, so that is the kind of core of this public event. The next thing I want to mention is that you'll notice that there's a couple streams going out in 3 different directions, one going to the right and then 2 going off kind of to the left. Those streams are going to lead you to invisible plates that once you approach them are actually going to kind of phase into our reality, and in order to make this public event heroic, you have to capture all 3 of those plates up to 100% and basically disable those plates. So that's why I slowed this down, because a lot of people don't understand how this works. You do have to do it without running out of too much time. I think you have to have at least 1.5 minutes or more on the clock when you disable those plates. But for the base of it, you just need to make sure that you're focusing on it as fast as possible. One thing I will also say is this is probably the hardest public event to do completely solo. And unfortunately, on the day I was filming a lot of these, I didn't actually have any of my clanmates online, so I did end up entirely having to do this public event by myself. There wasn't even any randoms in the area for some reason, which was super disappointing. And a lot of people say that you can't do this public event solo. For the most part, I would probably agree. There's a few of them that you can't because of the regions. This is one of the few regions you can do by yourself. And so you'll notice that while I'm capturing these plates, I spend a lot of time looking backwards towards the middle conflux, and that's because I am trying to prevent them from sacrificing, while also trying to prevent myself from dying from the guys that are coming after me. So you notice I spend a lot of time spinning during this event because, again, I'm by myself and I am having to defend a whole lot of things at once. You do have to be on point if you're going to try and do this by yourself, or have just a extensive know-how of where every enemy is going to spawn and at what point everything's going to be happening. So basically, you notice that I'm capturing these plates, same as everything else in this game. It's just a little bar that goes from 0 to 100. All you have to do is capture it to 100%, and then you move to the next one. I've already done the first one, now I'm on the second, and I'm about to go to the third. And again, you have to do this pretty quickly when you're doing it by yourself. If you're doing it with 3 people, obviously you just put a different person on each plate, and then the whole thing is pretty much done within the first minute. As well, you're also going to have a lot of those fanatics, those exploders that are going to rush you. They're very frustrating because they do a lot of damage, and of course, we all know how Vex are. They actually do their little, I don't know what it is, the little milky, electric-y shit that when you kill them, drops onto the ground, so it actually makes where you're standing very dangerous as well. So you have to try and prevent that from happening. You want to preferably not have them detonate on your plate like this one did, and almost got me killed. Realistically, this event is not actually that hard. In this situation, it's looking a lot more stressful than it really should be, but all you have to do is capture your plates, and then the event will proc to Heroic. Once the event becomes Heroic, it's going to spawn a giant Hydra boss and 2 Cyclopses, one on either side of him. Depending on the area for the public event, sometimes they're right next to him, and in others, like if you do the one in, I think it's Watcher's Grave, the Cyclopses are like way up on edges and stuff, and kind of out of line of sight half the time. So you have to be careful. They don't have a lot of health. Again, if you're running good DPS weapons, specifically for taking out bosses, they're not too difficult to take down, but definitely try and get them as fast as possible. The boss, then the 2 Cyclopses, and then once those 3 are down, you can just focus back onto your survival and making sure that enemies stay away from the central conflux. Also, I'm not going to lie, I was genuinely surprised, and I mean a little impressed, but mostly surprised, that I managed to actually do this entire solo event completely without dying. Alright, moving on into the next public event. This one is going to be the Witch's Ritual. Now, this one only has 2 locations in the entire game. It's either going to be the one here on Titan, or it's going to be the one on Mars, down in the Drift, I believe it is. Those are the only 2 witch rituals. No, that's not true. They added a 3rd one on the moon. So there are 3 locations for the witch's ritual to show up in this game, and it's a very simple public event. The first thing you want to do, which I actually forgot to do, was take out the knight that comes to your plate, because he'll kill you otherwise, and he does a lot of damage, as you notice there. The second thing you have to do is stand on these plates. There's one on the right side and one on the left side. You'll notice that I'm staying on it. That's the only way to be able to damage the wizards. You know, when you first load in, you're going to notice they have the white shields, and then as soon as you step on the plate, those shields go away and they become damageable. After both wizards have been destroyed, the portal opens, and you have to return to your plates and destroy the crystals that are up on the right and left side. You'll notice that it had a shield, and now we can destroy it. As soon as you've destroyed both wizards and then both crystals, the event is heroic. This is probably the fastest event in the entire game. It is absolutely insane how quick you can go through it. And out of the portal is going to be a giant knight. As well, you will notice there's actually a second knight that shows up in this video while we're doing our boss phase here. That is because during the Titan Flashpoint week, there's a second boss on the heroic version of this strike. This strike. Oh my gosh. On the heroic version of this public event. Once the first knight is dead, the public event ends, and then the second knight technically is not associated to it. Whether you kill him or not doesn't really matter. It'll end either way, and you get your hero completion. Man, I really struggled to get through that. I screwed up so many things there. Alright, moving on to the next one. Let's go! Alright guys, we've made it to the final public event that I'm going to have for this video. Part 1, Public Events Heroic Walkthrough. This one is The Warsat, this one is pretty much exclusive just to Mars and the Moon. It's a public event that they brought back with the Mars DLC back at the end of year 1. And it is quite a simple public event to actually get through. Actually, the one on Mars is technically harder because the Ogre boss really can only be killed by the Valkyries, because its health is just absolutely absurd. The one here on the Moon is not actually that hard to do. No, neither of them is hard to do, but it's a very simple setup. All you have to do is approach the Warsat and put your ghost onto it, and you're going to do the classic stand in the circle and transmat to 100%. That's for the standard version. For the heroic version, we're going to have a little bit of a heroic mechanic that's going to not make us have to go to 100%, we only have to go to 75%. So the way this is going to work is we're going to do the classic defend against a few waves of enemies until we get to 25% on the transmat. So it does take a little bit of time, it's a bit of waiting, because you have to stay in the circle, and these enemies like to knuckle in the circle sometimes. Once it hits 25%, it's going to spawn 2 different ritual wizards. They're going to spawn on opposite sides of the Warsat, and they're going to move into a position kind of around the Warsat, and they're going to do a bit of a ritual. You want to prevent them from actually doing this ritual because they do the poison mist thing that they've just kicked in here, and it does damage over time, and you don't want to get stuck in that. You can't really move, you're getting shot, it's just a big mess. Once you've killed both wizards, these shriekers are going to open. There's going to be 1 shrieker each time that opens. So classic, you're going to do a 3-phase type thing that Bungie likes to do, and once that shrieker's dead, you're going to go back to as it was before. You're going to rinse and repeat. You're going to go back to defending against a bunch of endless waves of enemies, and then you're going to wait for 50%. At 50%, they're going to spawn another 2 wizards, and you're going to repeat the process. Kill both wizards, and then kill whichever shrieker opens up. After that's done, you rinse and repeat one more time until it's 74%, I believe it is, and it's going to spawn the last set of wizards, and then open the shrieker again. Now, as soon as you have killed the 3rd Shrieker, the Ogre boss is going to spawn, keeping in mind that he has a lot of health and does a lot of damage. And there's a lot of enemies that spawn around you at the same time. As soon as you kill him, your public event is over, and you get your rewards. The important thing to remember, too, is as soon as the 3rd set of wizards spawn, you don't actually have to stand in the circle. That doesn't matter anymore, same as like the Cabal Drill. It only matters about the boss. And there you go. You've got a whole bunch of public events that you now know how to do. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching this video. Keep in mind, this is just Heroic Events Walkthrough Part 1. Part 2 is going to be coming sometime within the next few days or sometime within the week. That's going to be featuring things that are more complicated, like the Awoken Charge, Vex Crossroads, the Cryopod boss, and the Ether one with the Scorn on the Tangled Shore. So that's going to be what that video features. If this video was helpful to you or someone you know, please let me know and continue passing it around. And as well, give a like, a subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can see when my next videos are going up. Again, this is the Vanguard Raid Command, and I'm Armageddon Actual. We'll see you next time.